Let's move into Brush Street Beat, presented by our friends at McLaren. And today's guest, everybody, I don't think this man needs an introduction, but it's Dan Petry, former Tiger and current member of the Fox Sports Detroit Tigers broadcast team. Dan, thank you so much for joining us today. Hey, you're making your Word on Woodward debut.
I am. And I think I do need an introduction. It's been a long, long time since I've played, but just so happy, like you said, to be a part and hopefully be a part of the 2020 Tiger season, should they come up with something, and hopefully starting in July.
Dan, let's start right there. That was your first season, the last season was, I should say, with the Detroit Tigers as a member of the broadcast team. How did that go for you? Did you enjoy it?
You know, it was so much fun. And really the biggest thing is just being back and being a part of the ball club. I mean, I've so-called pinched hit, for guys when they've had some illnesses or got injured or something like that. And I did some work with Dan Miller on Fox 2, but never really a full-time position. And last year was a full-time position, and just being a part of from spring training all the way to the end. And it just brought back so many memories, and just talking and being around the players. And Gardy is such a pleasure to be around, and sit in his office every day when they're at home and hearing his media scrum and everything he feels about the game and about his current players and who's doing this, who's not doing that, and who's looking good for the future. I mean, it was just tremendous to be a part of the ball club again. And that's why I'm just missing it, along with all the other fans out there, just missing this baseball season so much right now.
Dan, don't sell yourself short. I mean, you were a Tiger for 11 years. You're a World Series champion. You won 119 ball games in the Old English D. I want to go back to the beginning. You're from California. When you're drafted and you're in Michigan, of all places, what was that transition like for you to come from, the Golden State to the Wolverine State?
Well, I always laugh because when I was drafted, it was done a lot differently. I still happened to be asleep, and my mom had gotten the morning newspaper and woke me up and said, "Hey, Dan, you were drafted in the 4th round by the Tigers." So that was really the way that I found out that I had been drafted. So that was kind of a strange situation. But I think what helped me too was just the fact of coming up through the minor league system, and then going to Evansville, Indiana, first gave me that first real sense of being in the Midwest. But I always say that if you would have told me to go point to the state of Michigan, on a map, I'm not sure I could have done it in high school. Now I'm not going to swear by that, but now I make my home here now, so things have certainly come a long way since being drafted as a 17-year-old.
Perhaps maybe the best thing about you being drafted by the Tigers is that your son, Jeff, who is a very accomplished NHL player, do you think if you would have been drafted by a West Coast team that he ever would have been a hockey player?
That's a great, observation, because that was one of the things when I got done playing. I said to both the boys, I have an older boy, Matt, 2 years older than Jeff, that, hey, I'll coach you guys all the way up in baseball. And but if you're going to live here, or we're going to live here in Michigan, you're going to have to learn how to play hockey. So I got both of them involved. And of course, I know nothing about hockey still to this day. So it was just a matter of getting them skating lessons and just being a dad, just saying, here, I'm going to drive you. I'll help you, get dressed and tie your skates and all that kind of stuff, and get you out there. But whatever you're going to earn on your own, because I can't help you here. And that, you're right. That's one of the big things is I don't ever think that they probably would have got involved in hockey as a youth being out in California.
Dan, you were part of the 1985 All-Star team. I think Lance Parrish was hurt, but he was a member of that team. I think there were 5 or 6 Tigers on it. Sparky was the manager. Okay, maybe the National League won 6-1. Maybe your ERA somehow is 54 from that game, which is astounding. I don't even know. Is that a record, by the way? Is that the highest ERA in All-Star history? But I'm just jabbing you a little bit, Dan. You know I love you, but I'm kind of
I'm
curious.
sure somebody's got an
What
affinity
is that?
ERA. I'll bet you.
Oh yeah, well we'll have to check that out. But I'm curious. I mean, the All-Star game, and maybe a little bit of the luster is taken off because of interleague play now. But those were you in awe, even though you know these hitters, of being in that game and going up against the very best in the National League? Because back then, I don't think you saw them quite as much as you would see them today.
No, and as I was getting ready for today, they kind of hinted that you might bring up the 1985 All-Star game. So I was kind of thinking back to that game, and so many fond memories, and really as long as that's been 35 years, it's still very fresh in my mind. Again, my performance was not the best, but it was just such a different atmosphere. As many Tigers as there were on that particular team, by the time I got in the game, I don't think any of them were left. And I was throwing to Rich Gedman, who I'd never thrown to before. And, when you're playing the game, generally you're not nervous. I mean, you might have some butterflies, going through before the start of the game. But that particular game, when I got in, I mean, I was nervous. It was like, man, who are these guys? And you're facing National League hitters. You're not with your teammates. Fortunately, it was in the Metrodome, so it was a familiar stadium. National League umpires, just a lot of things, and just one little quick little story was I was in awe of the being in the locker room with so many great American League players who I respected and got to compete against. And remember, one thing that stood out was Don Mattingly. I think we were sitting right next to one another, just kind of shooting the breeze. And I remember him making fun of my tan or lack of a tan at that particular point. So that's one thing that really sticks out, is him kind of chiding me about being white as a ghost.
Let's go back to 84. That was your sixth season in the big leagues. You were with the Tigers. And I'm kind of curious. I mean, 35-5 start, best start in baseball history, led wire to wire. I mean, we know what kind of team that was, but coming up through the ranks, as I said, that was season 6. Do you see maybe some similarities between the 2020 Tigers or what they're going through, and perhaps maybe what you experienced leading up to a World Series team?
Well, I think the blueprint might be the same as what they're trying to do. They're trying to build from within, from their draft picks, and get a nucleus of players, much like we did back then. If you take just the draft that I was involved in '76, there was Alan Trammell, myself, and Jack Morris came just from that one draft. So I think that's very similar. But look at the 2020 Tigers that have so many people on 1-year contracts. I mean, so who knows how many of them are going to be around next year. You've got the free agents, Jonathan Scope and CJ Crone and Austin Romine, and they're on 1-year deals. Could they be even, well, now in this shortened season, they may not get traded at a deadline, but so much competition in the outfield where you've got people just playing for their jobs. So some of these people are still establishing themselves, and then they'll also build from that terrific group of young pitchers, but also some of these position players who haven't quite yet made names for themselves. But I think that's kind of what they're trying to do, is build from that minor league system and then fill in with outside pitch pieces, much like the '84 team did with Guillermo Hernandez, Darrell Evans, Dave Bergman, people like that.
Dan, you mentioned it briefly that there are some terrific prospects in the pitching pool there for the Tigers, and you spent some time at spring training watching a couple of them, and Matt Manning, Casey Mize, and we've got Tarek Skubal too. What do you, being the pitcher that you were, when you watch them, what's kind of your evaluation of those three, and how do you think they're going to be in the league?
That's why, again, it's so disappointing. I had the greatest week down in spring training. When the team was on the road, those guys stayed back, and I got to watch them work out. I got to watch them throw their bullpens. I even, talk to them. I don't like to bother any of those guys. I mean, yeah, I have a job to do, but I just, I let them keep the distance, and they don't want to talk to this old guy. So, I just kept my distance and just observed. And, and don't forget about Alex Baedo. I mean, he's, kind of under the radar a little bit, but those four really, really look good. And the thing that really impresses me is, I mean, not only their stuff, okay, but it's how they root for one another. There's competition, certainly, because you want to have competition. If I were Casey Mize, I'd want to be the first one to make it out of that group. If I were Tarek Skubal, I'd want to be the first one out of the group. But if you talk to those guys, they pretty much say, well, yeah, there's competition. We all want to make it, but we really want to make it all at the same time. So that's what I love about it. There's no jealousy. There's no, putting one above the other. And that's where good teams start, is where they're all united, pulling for one another. They're not going to all get called up at the same time. There'll be one here, one there, and another one maybe within a few days or a few weeks of one another. But once they get up there, they're going to form that really solid nucleus. And again, which I think good teams are made of.
Well, Dan, unfortunately, our time has run out with you, but thank you so much. We really could chat with you all day if it was possible. Thank you so much for joining us for Brush Street Beat today. It was great to hear your insight, and we really, really hope that you're working some Tigers games very soon.
Me too, and thank you guys for having me, and really good questions. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. A big thank you to our friends at McLaren Health Care for presenting Brush Street Beat this week and every week here on the Word on Woodward.